Okay, so here's our nice putting it all together. So if we just put all this together and say, okay, what are our restrictions for the answers? So we said that inverse sine, inverse cosecant, inverse tangent, the answers are always in the first or fourth quadrants. Whenever you do the inverse of a positive, the answer is just the reference angle. That goes for all 6 of them. Inverse of a positive is just the reference angle. For sine, cosecant, and tangent inverse, sine inverse, cosecant inverse, tangent inverse, when you do the inverse of a negative, then you just do the negative reference angle because you're in the fourth quadrant, except it's not like the fourth quadrant, like you're going around normally in like 11 pi over 6. You do the negative of the reference angle, negative of the reference angle. And we showed that. And if we need to show it again, we can show it again. Because if you do something like inverse sine negative 0.5, you think, oh, well, sine of negative 0.5, that would be 11 pi over 6. But when you do it on the calculator, you get negative 30. You get the negative reference angle. So that's the way TI programmed the calculators. So that's the rule that we're supposed to follow. But here's something that a lot of people like as a way to remember it. Notice how like cosine and sine meet at the S in the first quadrant. Cotan and tan meet at the T in the first quadrant. Secant and cosecant meet at the C in the first quadrant. So what a lot of people like to do is say, and remember, arc just means inverse. Arc means inverse. That's the old way we used to say inverse back in the old days. Arc means inverse. So inverse cosine, inverse sine meet like that, so that you know that for inverse cosine, you're first and second. Inverse sine, you're first and fourth. Arc cotan, inverse arc tan, inverse cotan, inverse tan. They meet here. So cotan is first and second, whereas tan is first and fourth. Remembering that that's the negative reference angle. And then secant, cosecant meet here. So secant is first and second. Cosecant is first and fourth. And this is the only way these can meet. This is the only way you can get letters to meet like this. Somebody says, what if you mix them up? There's no other way you can get those letters to meet like that. So a lot of people, when it comes time to take a test or a quiz on this, a lot of people just immediately write this little chart, these little charts there on your paper. So inverse of a negative for these 3 guys, you always just do the negative reference. For these 3, you have to do the regular second quadrant. When you do the inverse of a negative, it's the regular second quadrant. What was I going to yell about? When we get to the calculator stuff, there will be issues with the calculator stuff, but we'll worry about that in another video at another time. So just real quick, for the umpteenth time, let's go through this again. So when you read the question, what angle has a sine of 1/2? You say, oh, well, that's pi over 6. That's easy enough. First quadrant, if it's positive, you just go first quadrant. What angle has a sine of negative 1/2? You're thinking, uh-oh, sine is one of the ones that's first and fourth quadrant. 1/2 is when you get the pi over 6s for sine. Fourth quadrant, you just do the negative reference angle. Cosine of 1/2, oh, that's easy. That's pi over 3. Cosine of negative 1/2, well, you're thinking, okay, I know the reference is pi over 3, but oh no, it's negative, so I just go regular second quadrant, so 2 pi over 3. Tan of 1, oh, that's easy, pi over 4. Tan of negative 1, well, I know the reference is pi over 4, but oh no, tan is one that goes fourth quadrant for the negatives, which just means negative reference angle. Same thing here. Oh, cosecant of what angle has a cosecant of 2? Well, that's pi over 6. Cosecant of negative 2. Cosecant is first and fourth, so negative. When it's negative, you do the negative reference. So that guy's going to be pi over 3. Oh no, secant of a negative, you do regular second quadrant. Cotan of 1, oh, that's easy. That's pi over 4. Cotan of negative 1, and this is, like I said, cotan messes some people up because you kind of think it's supposed to be the same as tangent, kind of like secant and cosecant, sine and cosecant are the same. Secant and cosine are the same. Cosecant and sine are the same. Tan and cotan are not the same. Cotan goes into the second quadrant. This is going to be an issue when we do calculator problems. But anyway, this is, and this, I'm going to have this posted. This will be posted, but this is the super shortcut. So you don't have to memorize all those specific videos for this stuff. You just need to know these restrictions.